One. Welcome, everyone. This is Walt Kasmir, your host of Critical Conversations. I'm inviting you to pull up a chair and interact with us when we're talking about relevant information, relevant topics that affect millions of families: economic literacy, financial literacy, legal literacy, medical literacy, social literacy. All of these issues that we kind of dance around, that is the hub of this whole channel. And today I have the privilege of exposing you to one of the nation's treasures, an author, an advocate, an activist, and a dynamic speaker. And I'll let him explain to you why that is such a miracle in itself. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to none other than Joseph B. Washington.
And what I did was I took the word average and I asked myself, I said, Joseph, if you were to go from average to awesome, how would you do that? I love acronyms, so I took the word average and I created these 7 incredible principles that will take you from average to awesome, from awesome to taking action in your life. And if you want me to, I'll go through the 7 real quick if you like.
I'm so glad you did that articulate segue. I most definitely want you to give us the highlights of your whole philosophy. And it's so awesome that you could distill all that down to a memorable, impactful acronym.
Yes.
So just walk us through the core messages of your acronym, and I'm just going to step back and allow you to do your magic.
I appreciate it. So, first we have to define what is average. And when I'm in front of my audiences, throughout the country, I ask them, define what is average. And you will hear people say, the middle of the road, mediocrity, same old, doing what everybody else does. I define average as a painkiller that lulls you to sleep while it slowly numbs your senses. Average is the top of the bottom and the bottom of the top. It is the best of the worst and the worst of the best. Because what I realize is that average people don't get noticed. And so how do we go from wasted potential to destiny fulfilled? We take this word average and we go through this roller coaster ride. We go through this maze, this amazing journey of getting to the end. So the letter A, when you look at the word average, the letter A, the first thing that you and I must do is adopt a positive attitude, because it is your attitude that's going to determine your success or your failure. I teach people that if you take the word attitude, ATTITUDE, if you count each letter where it falls numerically in the alphabet, it comes out to exactly 100. So the letter A is the first letter of the alphabet. The letter T is the 20th letter. The next T is the 20th letter. The I is 9, the T is 20, the U is 21, the D is 4, and the E is 5. It comes out to exactly 100. But knowledge comes out to 96. Hard work comes out to 98. And so although you have tremendous knowledge and you're a hard worker, it is your attitude that's going to determine your success or your failure. So you got to adopt a positive attitude. The letter V, you got to value your time. And I teach people all the time, you have to value whose time? Your time. Stop giving your time away to people who you think are more important than you or more valuable than you are. It is your time. And one of the components that I teach is that you got to move opposite of the crowd with your time, because average people follow crowds. Average breakers create them. So when Wendy and I, my beautiful wife and I, go to a movie, we don't go on a Friday night here in Atlanta, Georgia at 8 o'clock at night when there's thousands of people. We go on a Tuesday afternoon around 1 o'clock when there's 4 or 5 people in the theater, and we pretty much got it all to ourselves. Why? Because we move opposite of the crowd with our time. So I adopt a positive attitude. I value my time. The letter E in the word average is to enlist the help of a mentor. You need somebody that's going to stretch you and not shrink you. Somebody that's going to make you better and not make you bitter. But you need somebody who's going to have the emotional integrity to be honest with you and say, if you keep doing what you keep doing, you're going to keep getting what you keep getting. So you need mentors that are going to stretch you, because if you don't get the right mentors to stretch you, you're going to end up on a stretcher with the ambulance coming to get you to take you to the hospital because you're all stressed out. So we adopt a positive attitude. We value our time. We enlist the help of a mentor. And then the letter R is read daily. Read daily, because readers are leaders. I believe it was Emerson who said that every time I learn something new, my mind stretches and it never returns back to its original proportion. My brain never goes back to its original proportion because the more I put in, the more I can give out. But you got to read daily. And I teach young people this all the time because most young people are not stupid and dumb. They're just not strong readers. And when they become strong readers, they can do math and science. They can do history and language arts and all that. So we've got to get back to that old fashioned way of reading. No more audiobooks, and nothing wrong with audiobooks, but we've got to get back to reading if we're going to let average go. So we adopt a positive attitude. We value our time. We enlist the help of a mentor. We read daily. The next A in the word average is anticipate opposition because the dream killers are coming. You got to realize that they're coming. Everybody don't want to see you do well. And that's why you got to get around people that when they see you coming, man, they value you. You got to stop being around people who just tolerate you and get around people who going to celebrate you. But you've got to anticipate opposition, and opposition is good because it makes us, it builds us, it develops us, it develops our character, it makes us into who we truly are. Because if you never have any opposition, you'll really never know who you are. So we got to anticipate that opposition. And I teach about that in my book, how we begin to counteract that. So we adopt a positive attitude. We value our time. We enlist the help of a mentor. We read daily. We anticipate opposition. And then the letter G is guard your goals. I believe it was Dr. Benjamin E. Mays who said, it must be born into the mind of a man that the tragedy in life is not that you not reach your goals. The tragedy in life is that you have no goals to reach. And so we've got to talk about goal setting. How do we reach goals? And I teach in my course that you've got to have written goals because a short pencil is better than a long memory. And then you've got to have goals that are visual because the me I see is the me I'll be. Right. And that when you write your goals, always write your goals in quicksand, not in concrete. Why? Because you may have to make some mid-course adjustments with your goals. You may have to, wait another semester before you graduate or, because there's never a perfect time for anything to happen. You may need a little bit more time. So if you write it in quicksand, you can sort of wiggle it around. But if you write it in concrete and you say this is that, and then it doesn't happen, then you give up altogether. But we've got to learn the importance of setting goals, setting the right goals, the whole SMART formula, goals that are specific, goals that are real to you. You got to set goals that are purposeful, that are in line with your character and who you are. So we've got to guard our goals. And then finally, after we adopt a positive attitude, after we value our time, after we enlist the help of a mentor, after we read daily, after we anticipate opposition, after we guard our goals, the last letter is the letter E of the word average, and that is we must empower our belief system. What do you believe about yourself? You still believe in the lies that were told to you years ago that you ain't good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not tall enough, whatever the case may be, you're not educated enough? You got to empower your belief system. When I was little, I went to the circus. And when I went to the circus, my mother had taken me and my brother, and the trainer had come out with the baby elephant, and the baby elephant did tricks and all this. But I noticed that the trainer took the elephant in back of the tent and tied the elephant's foot to a stake with a chain on it, and the elephant stayed right there. Well, 20 years later, I went back to that same circus, and that elephant was as big as the tent now. It's a full-grown elephant. The elephant came out, Walt, they started doing tricks, doing what it did before, and that same trainer took that elephant to the back of the tent and tied his foot to a stake. I excused myself from my friends that I was with. I went into the back and I asked the elephant, I said, Mr. Elephant, do you mind if I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, why are you in the same place today that you were 20 years ago? You're still tied to this stake. And here's what he said to me, Walt. He said, 20 years ago, I was held captive by force. But today I'm held captive by my belief system. You see, 20 years ago when I was little, there were people who were bigger than me that could keep me in one position, but I've grown to understand that this one place is where I belong. So now there's a fully grown elephant and I can tear this place apart. I have the power and the strength to do it. My belief system tells me to stay in my place. And so we've got to empower our belief system. You got to teach people to start believing in themselves, start seeing the magic that lies within them, start understanding that God has divinely made them with their own DNA, their own structure. And when we can make the decision to let average go, to leave that place of wasted potential and begin to fulfill our destiny, then that's the day that we begin to live. We begin to live when we say to average that our relationship is over. I tell people all the time, send average their divorce papers, man. Let it go. Let that relationship go. And when we do that, Walt, it begins to make a difference, man.
Mm-hmm.
Illiteracy.
Oh,
you see, you got 5% of the world controlling 95% of all the wealth. Why is that? Because they are literate in terms of how finances work. As a people, especially African American people, we're such consumers, man. We consume. There was a statistic done that African Americans, I believe it was in 2009, spent like $6 million on barbecue potato chips, right? I mean, it's just the craziness, buying these shoes that are so expensive. And I tell these parents all the time, why don't you take the shoes back that you paid all that money for? Mm-hmm. Get your money back and go get your child some tutorial. Go get your child some learning. Because that's really where it's at. But we've got to learn fiscal literacy in terms of how we begin to make our money work for us. You and I talked about this before we got on air. Giving your money a job and have it go to work. Because I told you, I ain't worked in 20 years. I ain't punched the clock in 20 years. I wake up whenever I finish sleeping. So whenever I get done sleeping is when I get up, Walt. Because I designed my life in order for it to work like that. Because I work in corporate America. I work the job. Nothing wrong with that, because you can take the 9 to 5 that you work and stretch that money, make it work. But you got to have some other stuff in place. But just me and corporate America, man, just wasn't working because I could only go but so high.
Right.
So I said, I'm gonna do what the 5% do.
Right.
I'm gonna get on the side of not just owning my own business, but being an investor as well. If it's real estate, if it's in the crypto market, whatever it is, we've got to learn how to begin to take some chances on ourselves, right? We got to be willing to put ourselves first. And that's what my wife and I have done, man. We just become fiscal literate, and it's just been an amazing, amazing journey.
Now, Joseph, please dispel the myth that to become rich with financial instruments, investments, etc., requires us to be a genius or a nerd, as the young people say. Shed some light on that for me, please.
Brother, listen, man, if that was the case, you look at the wealthiest people in the world, most of them don't even have a college degree, okay? They don't own a college degree. What they own and what they've been able to acquire is they have become master mimickers. They're able to mimic the folks that are in that 5% club. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have to, listen, if you can read and comprehend, and like you said, get on the internet and start researching, how do I gain wealth, reading the right books, getting in the right atmosphere, man, I'm telling you, it is amazing. And then God has a grace on the lives of those individuals who are seeking more. The Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things shall be added unto you. So I've learned to seek God's kingdom, and then God opens up the floodgates. But I'm learning what I've learned because I'm able to read and I'm able to listen, and then I'm able to get around the right people, Walt. Mm-hmm. That's important. Who are your associates? You got to avoid the company of unenthusiastic people. The first people in your life are those who whine and complain, who murmur. You got to get around stretchers, as we said earlier. You got to get around the William Thompsons of the world who are in that 5% and say, man, how do you do what you do? Because I tell people this, and I think it was Albert Einstein who said it. If you see a man that's well educated, ask him, what books are you reading? Mm-hmm. Who are your companions? Who are the people that you're around? So no, you don't need an education. You don't need a college degree or education. Nothing wrong with those things. You and I, we've been there, done that. But to be in that 5% of wealth, you got to get around the 5% of wealth people, either in person or the knowledge that they have out there, man. And I'm telling you, it's there.
Joseph, I'm so glad that you circled back around to the importance of reading.
Yes.
Now we wouldn't be having critical conversations if I didn't just throw some people under the bus and say some of us, a lot of us, too many of us don't think reading is good, don't think it's cool, or don't want to spend time doing boring things like that. Shed some light on the importance of reading and what you just said, how that distinguishes someone who reads relevant information that's going to help them compared to someone who's just consuming with reckless abandon.
Yeah. That reading puts you in front of certain conversations. You can tell when you've got a person who's well read. Because they can conversate with you well, they articulate well, they enunciate well. You know, I mentioned earlier that most of our kids aren't stupid or dumb. Well, they're just not strong readers. I tell people all the time, you've got to become a strong reader. You've got to read because readers are leaders. You know, and I told you what Emerson said, when you learn something new, your mind stretches. It never returns back to its original proportion. And it's going to be the difference, perhaps, not in all cases, but it's going to be the difference between, do you receive a check? Or are you signing for a check? You understand what I'm saying? Are you receiving a check? Are you the one who's signing the check? Because you've got folks that are working for you. You got folks that are in your sphere of influence. That's what reading has done. Reading has put me in places that I promise you, had I not been an avid reader, I would not have been able to intellectually be in some of the seminars and places that I've taught at. I remember being here in Georgia, being up at, I think it was Southern University or South Georgia, and I'm the keynote speaker for medical doctors. I'm not a medical doctor, man. Right. Nowhere am I a medical doctor. But I was able to start reading up on the doctors that were going to be attending, learning a little bit about their, about, you know, the profession that they're in. And I was able to learn enough to where we could have a conversation. And these guys are like, well, where'd you go to? I didn't go to med school. I just took the time to read about what it is that you guys do. And then I wove in, I did a message called, I want my crayons back. And I'm not saying please. Because for many of us, Walt, we have lost our creativity, brother. We have lost our creativity and our imaginations have been dulled down. And this is a season for us not only to let average go, but this is a season for us to go back and get our crayons. Because you remember when we was little, from first grade to sixth grade, man, our imagination and creativity was at its highest.
Oh, you're so right. You're so right.
We got in middle school and high school. We got around those crayon stealers. And our creativity and our imagination started to go down. And so I'm telling people, go get your crayons, man. Create a success plan. Run as fast as you can to the front of the line. Avoid the company of unenthusiastic people. Go help other people get their crayons back. Never negotiate your negotiables. And we just go on and on and on because this is what reading has been able to do for me. People think, well, God, this guy is smart. No, I outread you. When I went to Clorox, brother, and I did a seminar for Clorox. When you go into the main office of Clorox, in the floor, they have their 6 principles of Clorox. Okay. So I read them. And so here I am sharing these 6 principles of Clorox. And the people that are working for Clorox ask me, does he work for Clorox? I just read your principles. They're on the floor, man, as you walk in. I took the time to read it. So reading takes you to another place. And it lets people know that you're serious about academia, and it's not always academia from sitting in the classroom, but it's an academia from being in the classroom of knowledge and understanding. The library is the emptiest place in the world, man. And I'm telling you, that's the place that needs to be filled.
Now, Joseph, I'm glad you went back to reading, and we could go on. I could sit here and let's talk to you for hours, but we have to make it palatable for the people.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're going to wrap up on that point. Okay. But so can you give us just a couple examples of some of the things that you have read that have been deal break changers for you?
Sure. Well, you know, and again, and I hope it's okay, but you know, my Bible reading time. You know, I tell people all the time, there's 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. There's 31 days in a month. If you read a proverb a day, you can't help but have wisdom. You're going to have wisdom. You read a proverb every day, you're going to have wisdom. But I'm reading books, like I said, Think and Grow Rich, Nightingale. I'm reading, you know, right now I'm reading the 1619 Project. You know, I'm learning as much as I can, right? I'm reading, you know, books on Tony Evans and other people, Mark Batterson, Chasing the Lion. So I have a plethora of books that I'm reading that is literally changing my life. And I read various sections of books. I read, you know, social books. I read fiction, nonfiction. I read whatever I want to read in order to really begin to expand my knowledge and expand my mind. And so that I'm open to other things. I just don't want to be one-sided. I want to be open. I want to be well-rounded. So I try to keep my reading as well-rounded as I can. But I read every single day, brother. Every day I'm taking 30 minutes a day and I'm reading something. Yeah.
Now, And I hear you saying that it's not just about being a voracious and strategic reader, but actually taking that information and taking action and being consistent. And that's what I hear you describing as real true wisdom.
Yeah, because we can read and say I read, like people say, well, I read the Bible in a year, but how much did you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I take my books in chunks.
Okay.
And then when I read, I apply it. Right. So whatever I read, I go and apply it.
Okay.
Because I'd rather take my time reading slowly, getting it, and then make an application to that reading. So then now I put it into action. I'm just not a seer, but I'm not a doer.
Okay.
Of the word that I'm projecting. So I'm not a big advocate in rushing through books and doing all that. Take your time through it. Enjoy it. Get your books that you enjoy. When my boys were little, they didn't like reading, but they loved sports. So I had them reading the ESPN magazine.
Okay.
They would read it. And that was one of the things how I got them to loving reading, because I gave them something that they love, that they love to read. So I tell people all the time, the best way to get started reading, find something that you love reading. Right.
Okay. And you want people to read.
Yeah.
And just so happens you are the author of a book. Tell the people about the book and where they can find it and get more of your jewels.
Yeah. So the book is called Let Average Go. Of course, they can get it directly through me. I didn't put it on Amazon or do any of that because pre-COVID, man, I was speaking, 3-4 times a week, selling books in the back and whatnot. So if you want a copy of Let Average Go, you can just email me at joseph@letaverago.com. And I'll send you the information. You cash at me. We'll get a book out to you, and we'll make it very easy for you. I got a brand new website that's going to be coming up. Because it's been parked for a while, and so I'm going to be adding some stuff to it. But my thing, man, is getting in front of people and sharing this message and being a product of the product. See, my strength is that I'm a product of the I'm a product of the product. Right, because people know me when they're on Facebook. Ain't that dude that couldn't talk? Ain't that the woo-woo boy? Man, that dude couldn't even talk, man. Like, I'm grown now, and they're like, bro, I remember when you couldn't even talk. And you speaking like, man, this is crazy. And so I'm telling people that if you're ready to leave that place of average, it's not going to happen overnight. My book is a short book. It's about 120 pages, very easy to read. Because I'm not going to read a 300-page book. I'd have to ask you, Walt, what does my book say, man? Because I'm not going to read all that. So I made the chapters very user-friendly. Okay. They got a little workbook at the end of each chapter where you can answer these questions. And I've had as young as 6-year-olds read it. But I think the biggest compliment I get is when I hear men tell me, bro, I'm reading your book for the second time. Men, we don't do a lot of reading, but these guys are like, bro, I'm on your book for the second time. In fact, I got to get another one because my wife keep taking my book. So it's a great read. And not just because I wrote it, but I'm able to go more in depth of each one of those principles. Tell you a little bit about myself and how I came to go from average to awesome. People ask me, well, how did you get to the White House? Attitude. I did not know President Obama, but there was a school in Washington, D.C. that I had been working with for free, not charging them because they couldn't pay me. So they were on my to-do list just to be a blessing to them. They had the lowest testing scores in the District of Columbia. Barack Obama gets into the presidency in 2008. Drew Elementary now has the highest testing scores in 2010. The White House invites them to the White House for their 5th grade graduation class, and they call me to be the keynote speaker for the 5th grade graduation class. So I'm right there where President Obama is. Of course, there's a rope off. You got Michelle, Queen Latifah was there. The little boy Kanye West was there. But I'm right there. And in fact, you can go to YouTube, and I did a video on the White House lawn for all my haters, and just say, guys, I'm here. I'm right behind the White House. So I love it. Because somebody liked me, because I had a great attitude. Because anybody would have took that gig, man. So of course, I'm passionate about these 7 principles. I know that these 7 principles work, and I just tell people work the principles. And the principles will work for you.
So if you could give us some parting words of wisdom, and of course, everything that Mr. Washington mentioned, his links to his books, his website, how you can book him to speak, come to your conferences, etc., will be in the description of the videos and the podcast. Brother, can you close us out with some parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, what I want to say to your audience is this, is that it's never too late. And that today is the day that you make the decision to let average go. Today is the day that you decide to go from average to awesome to taking action. You know, this is your life and this is your future. And one day we're going to get old and we're not going to be able to move the same way we move now and do the things that we do now. But I want you to take advantage of the time that you have now. Carpe diem, seize the day. Make this work for you. You deserve it. I want you to enjoy your life. But if you're going to live your best life and if you're going to live the life that you deserve, you've got to make a decision to let average go. And maybe, you know, all of those 7 principles, you may say, you know, Joe, man, there's 3 of these principles I'm great at. These other 4, man, a little questionable. So in those 7 principles that I mentioned, take the one that you really need to work on. If it's your attitude, maybe you need to handle your time more wisely. Maybe you need the right mentors. I don't know what it is, but nothing is going to happen until you make it happen. And I want to say this as I part. The man who said it could not be done should stop bothering the man who's already doing it. Walt, you are doing it, brother. And I thank you for this opportunity to share something I'm so passionate about, and that is to let average go. But I'm telling you, when they make the decision, because to decide is not to decide, when you make the decision to let average go, it will absolutely happen in a person's life. It's up to them. 2022, let's make a difference, man.
Well, I am so elated and honored that you would come on our show, drop some gems, drop those 7 principles on us. Again, I'm Walt Kasmir, having critical conversations. I only bring you the best and the brightest. So until next time, be blessed and know that where there's hope, there's healing.